The conference room door slammed shut behind me. Adam stood there with that smug smile, the one I'd grown to hate over the past 6 months. "Pack your things, Lila. You're done here." His voice cut through the silence like a knife. 20 people from my department watched through the glass walls as my world crumbled. My name is Lila Chen, and I felt my face burn with shame. After 5 years of 60-hour weeks, missed birthdays, and sacrificed relationships, this was how it ended. "You can't be serious," I whispered, but Adam just shrugged. "Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. My hands trembled as I walked to my desk. 5 years of my life, and he threw me away like garbage in front of everyone I worked with. The whispers followed me as I grabbed my personal items. This wasn't just a firing. This was public humiliation designed to break me. But as I walked toward the elevator, something shifted inside me. The shame transformed into something else. Something dangerous. Adam had no idea what he'd just unleashed. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the building that had been my second home. Tears of anger burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. Adam thought he could destroy me with one cruel moment, but he was wrong. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. 5 years in this industry had taught me everything about the business. I knew the clients, the suppliers, the weak points in Adam's operation. I knew exactly where the bodies were buried because I'd helped bury half of them myself. My phone buzzed with texts from former colleagues expressing shock and sympathy. But sympathy wouldn't pay my bills or restore my reputation. I needed something else. I needed a plan. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. Adam had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. He thought firing me would eliminate the threat I posed to his precious ego. Instead, he just created his worst nightmare. A competitor who knew all his secrets and had nothing left to lose. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, replaying the humiliation over and over. But with each replay, my anger crystallized into something more powerful. Determination. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Everything I knew about Adam's business model. His client relationships. His operational weaknesses. The picture that emerged was clear. His company was successful, but it was also vulnerable. He'd grown complacent, relying on old relationships and outdated methods. I could build something better, something smarter, something that would make his empire look like a relic. By dawn, I had the skeleton of a business plan. It wasn't revenge I was planning. It was revolution. I would create a company so superior to his that clients would abandon him without a second thought. I wouldn't just take his market share. I would make his entire approach obsolete. The best part. He'd never see it coming until it was too late. Adam had taught me well. Now I would use every lesson against him. The next morning I called Derek, one of the most talented developers I knew. He'd left Adam's company 6 months ago after a similar betrayal. "Lila, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." His voice was filled with genuine concern. "Don't be sorry," I replied. "Be ready. I'm starting something new, and I want you to be part of it." There was silence on the other end, then excitement. "Tell me more." Over coffee, I outlined my vision. Derek's eyes lit up as I described the technology platform we could build. "It would revolutionize the entire industry," he said. "Exactly. Are you in?" He didn't hesitate. "When do we start?" By the end of the week, I had recruited 3 more talented professionals who'd been burned by Adam or his competitors. We were all hungry for something better. Something that was ours. We met in my living room that first night, laptops scattered across my coffee table, building the foundation of what would become Adam's nightmare. The energy was electric. We weren't just starting a business. We were starting a revolution. 6 weeks later, we launched our first product. It was small, just a basic software solution, but it was exactly what small businesses needed. Within days, we had our first 3 clients. They were tiny companies that Adam would never waste time on, but they loved our attention to detail and personal service. "This is incredible," said our first client, a local restaurant owner. Your system is so much easier than anything else I've tried. Each positive review felt like a small victory. While Adam was busy chasing million-dollar contracts and stroking his ego at industry conferences, we were building something real. Something that actually helped people solve their problems. I worked 18-hour days, but it didn't feel like work. Felt like purpose. Derek and the team shared the same passion. We weren't just building software. We were proving that there was a better way to do business. A way that put customers first instead of profit margins and executive bonuses. Adam had taught us what not to do. Now we were showing the world what success really looked like. 3 months after my firing, I attended the annual industry conference. Adam was the keynote speaker, of course. I sat in the back, watching him preach about innovation and customer service. The irony was painful. He talked about treating employees like family, while I remembered the cold satisfaction in his eyes when he destroyed my career. The future belongs to companies that adapt, he declared to thunderous applause. We can't be afraid to make tough decisions to stay competitive. Tough decisions. Like firing dedicated employees for no reason other than personal spite. The audience hung on his every word, but I saw something they missed. Adam was scared. He'd heard whispers about new competitors emerging, though he didn't know one of them was sitting 30 feet away. His confidence was a mask. Underneath, he was worried about maintaining his position. But he should be worried. Because while he was up there giving speeches about the future, I was busy building it. And his future was about to become very uncertain. Building the team was crucial. I needed people who understood what we were fighting for. Zoe joined us from a failed startup, brilliant at marketing but tired of working for men who took credit for her ideas. Kevin came from Adam's biggest competitor, frustrated by their outdated technology and bureaucratic culture. Priya was fresh out of college, eager to prove herself in an industry that usually overlooked young women. Each person brought unique skills and shared anger at how the industry treated talented people. We worked out of my apartment initially, but the energy was incredible. Everyone believed in what we were building. We weren't just colleagues. We were conspirators united by a common goal. Adam has no idea what's coming, Zoe said during one late-night planning session. He thinks the market is his forever, Kevin added. He's about to learn otherwise. But we had to be smart. Going head-to-head with Adam too early would be suicide. We needed to build our strength, prove our worth, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. Patience was our secret weapon. Adam heard about our startup faster than I expected. Within a week of our first press mention, I started getting calls from industry contacts warning me about rumors. Someone's spreading stories that you're difficult to work with, said Patricia, a former client. They're saying you left your last company under suspicious circumstances. I knew exactly who was behind the whisper campaign. Adam was trying to poison the well before we could establish ourselves. But his strategy backfired. Every client who called to ask about the rumors ended up learning about our services. Actually, I'm not difficult to work with at all, I told Patricia. Why don't you let me show you what we can do for your business? 2 days later she signed a contract. Adam's attacks were actually driving business our way. His desperation was showing, and industry veterans could smell it. They remembered when he was hungry and innovative, before success made him arrogant and cruel. Now he seemed threatened by a tiny startup, which made people curious about what we offered. Every rumor he spread just gave us more opportunities to prove ourselves. He was digging his own grave with every lie. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Charles Wellington, a former investor in Adam's company, reached out through a mutual contact. He was in his 70s, a legend in the industry who'd helped fund dozens of successful startups. I heard interesting things about your company, he said during our first call. I'd like to meet. We met at his private club, a wood-paneled sanctuary where billion-dollar deals were made over brandy and cigars. Adam has disappointed me, Charles said without preamble. His company has become complacent. They're coasting on past success while innovation happens around them. He leaned forward. I've been watching your progress. You're building something special. Charles didn't just offer investment. He offered something more valuable. Intelligence. He knew Adam's financial situation, his client relationships, his expansion plans. Information that could help us position ourselves strategically. I'm not interested in revenge, Charles said. I'm interested in backing winners. And Adam stopped being a winner years ago. The partnership with Charles changed everything. We now had resources, connections, and insider knowledge that leveled the playing field. Armed with Charles's intelligence, we made our first major move. Adam's company had been courting Meridian Industries for months, a massive contract that would represent 30% growth for his business. But Charles knew Meridian's real needs, and they weren't getting them from Adam's outdated approach. We developed a custom solution specifically for Meridian's unique challenges. While Adam was wining and dining executives with generic presentations, we quietly solved their actual problems. This is exactly what we needed, said Meridian's CEO during our presentation. Why didn't anyone else think of this approach? Because they weren't listening, I thought, but didn't say. They were too busy protecting their existing business model to innovate. 2 weeks later, Meridian signed with us. The contract was worth more than our entire first-year revenue projection. More importantly, it sent a message to the industry. The new players were serious competitors. Adam called me that night. His voice tight with barely controlled rage. Congratulations on the Meridian deal, he said. Enjoy it while it lasts. I smiled as I hung up. He finally understood what he was facing. And he was scared. The Meridian victory opened floodgates. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about the startup that had outmaneuvered the industry giant. Reporters called for interviews. Potential clients reached out for demonstrations. Other companies started poaching employees from Adam's firm to join the growing wave of innovation. We moved into real offices, hired additional staff, and expanded our service offerings. Every week brought new successes. Adam's company, meanwhile, began showing cracks. They lost 2 major clients in 1 month. Their stock price dropped 15%. Industry publications started questioning whether their leadership was keeping pace with market changes. Have you seen the latest quarterly report from Adam's company? Derek asked during a team meeting. Revenue is flat, and they're losing market share for the first time in 5 years. Watching Adam's empire weaken was satisfying, but we couldn't get complacent. He was dangerous when cornered, and we needed to be ready for whatever desperate move he tried next. Success was sweet, but we hadn't won yet. The real battle was just beginning. Our victory celebration was interrupted by disturbing news. Priya discovered something while analyzing competitor data for a client presentation. Look at these financial filings, she said, pointing to her screen. The numbers don't add up. She was right. Adam's company was reporting profits that didn't match their actual business performance. Revenue was inflated, expenses were hidden, and investor reports painted a picture that reality didn't support. He's cooking the books, Kevin said grimly. This could bring down his entire company. I stared at the evidence, feeling a mix of satisfaction and disgust. Adam was so desperate to maintain his image of success that he'd resort to fraud. What do we do with this? Oh yes. It was a critical decision. We could leak the information immediately and watch Adam's company implode. Or we could hold it as insurance, using it strategically when the moment was right. We wait, I decided. This information is too valuable to waste on immediate gratification. We'll use it when it can do the most damage. Sometimes the best revenge requires patience. Adam had taught me that lesson himself. The information leaked anyway, but not from us. A whistleblower inside Adam's company, fed up with the corruption, contacted financial reporters. Within hours, the story exploded across business media. Industry leader accused of financial fraud, screamed the headlines. Adam's stock price collapsed. Clients started canceling contracts. Investors demanded emergency meetings. I watched the chaos unfold from our conference room, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and pity. This was what happened when arrogance replaced ethics. Adam had built his empire on lies, and lies eventually crumble under their own weight. "Should we release a statement?" asked our PR consultant. "No," I replied. "Let the story speak for itself." We didn't need to attack Adam while he was down. Our success would be our statement. While his company burned, we focused on serving our clients and growing our business. The contrast was clear to everyone watching. Adam's company represented the old way of doing business: manipulation, fraud, and ego-driven decisions. We represented something better: transparency, innovation, and customer-focused solutions. The market would decide which approach deserved to survive. Adam's fall accelerated over the following weeks. 3 major clients terminated their contracts, citing concerns about financial stability and ethical practices. His board of directors called for an emergency restructuring. Key employees began jumping ship to competitors, including us. I received at least 5 resumes daily from people desperate to escape the sinking company. "It's like watching a controlled demolition," observed Charles during one of our weekly calls. "Except Adam's the one who lit the fuses." The industry buzzed with speculation about Adam's future. Would he resign? Would the company survive? Would criminal charges follow? Meanwhile, our business exploded. Every client Adam lost seemed to find their way to us. We were hiring new employees weekly to handle the demand. Our technology platform, built from scratch with modern approaches, easily outperformed Adam's antiquated systems. "We're not just succeeding," Derek observed. "We're defining the new industry standard." It was true. Other companies were copying our innovations, trying to match our client service levels. We'd gone from startup to industry leader in less than a year. All because Adam had underestimated the woman he fired in front of her colleagues. The final blow to Adam's empire came from an unexpected source: his own arrogance. Instead of admitting mistakes and working to rebuild trust, he doubled down on denying responsibility. "These accusations are attempts by jealous competitors to damage our reputation," he declared in a disastrous press conference. "We've done nothing wrong." The audience wasn't buying it. Reporters peppered him with questions about the financial irregularities. His answers were evasive and unconvincing. "Mr. Turner, how do you explain the discrepancy between reported profits and actual cash flow?" asked one journalist. Adam's face reddened. "Our accounting methods are perfectly legal and transparent," he snapped. But the damage was done. His defensive, angry performance confirmed everyone's worst suspicions. Within 24 hours, 3 more major clients had cancelled contracts. 2 board members resigned. The company's credit rating was downgraded. "He's finished," Charles observed. "A leader's response to crisis defines their character. Adam just showed the world exactly who he really is." I felt no satisfaction watching his final meltdown. Just relief that justice was finally being served. The man who'd humiliated me in front of my colleagues was now humiliating himself in front of the entire industry. As Adam's company entered its death spiral, I discovered his final, desperate gambit. Our client services team reported concerning activity. Someone was selling knockoff versions of our software at dramatically reduced prices. The products were crude copies of our innovations, clearly rushed to market without proper development or testing. "It's obviously Adam," Kevin said during our emergency meeting. "He's trying to undercut us with cheap imitations." But the strategy was flawed from the start. Our clients valued quality and service, not just low prices. When they discovered the knockoff products were unreliable and came without support, they felt insulted that anyone thought they'd accept such garbage. "Did Adam really think we'd abandon you for a cheaper substitute?" asked one client CEO. "Your platform transformed our entire operation. We're not switching for a few dollars in savings." Each failed knockoff sale actually strengthened client loyalty to us. They appreciated having a clear comparison that highlighted our superior value. Adam's desperation was making our company look even better by contrast. "He's not just failing," observed Zoe. "He's actively helping us succeed." It was poetic justice. The man who'd tried to destroy my career was now inadvertently promoting my business. The legal troubles were inevitable. When you build an empire on fraud, eventually lawyers come calling. The FBI raided Adam's offices on a Tuesday morning, seizing computers and financial records. Federal investigation into corporate fraud dominated the business news cycle. Former employees lined up to cooperate with investigators, eager to distance themselves from the scandal. Adam hired the best legal team money could buy, but the evidence was overwhelming. Emails discussing falsified reports, recorded conversations about hiding expenses, bank records showing money laundering through shell companies. "It's like he kept receipts for every crime," Charles observed with dark humor. "Criminal masterminds usually try to hide their tracks." The investigation expanded beyond just financial fraud. Labor violations, tax evasion, and investor fraud all became part of the federal case. Adam's desperation to maintain his empire had led him to break every rule in the book. I watched the legal proceedings unfold with professional interest but personal detachment. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about justice for everyone Adam had harmed over the years through his arrogance and greed. The legal system would handle his punishment. I was too busy building something positive to waste energy on his destruction. The formal charges came down like hammer blows: securities fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy. Adam's company was dissolved, its assets frozen pending criminal proceedings. Employees were left scrambling to find new jobs. Clients were transferred to government-appointed administrators to ensure continuity of services. 23 separate felony charges, reported the Business News anchor. If convicted on all counts, Turner could face up to 40 years in federal prison. I watched the coverage from our new corporate headquarters, a gleaming building that housed our rapidly growing operation. The contrast wasn't lost on me. While Adam's empire crumbled into legal chaos, we were building something sustainable and honest. "Does it feel strange?" asked Derek. "Watching your former boss become a federal criminal?" I considered the question. It did feel surreal. A year ago, I'd been terrified of Adam's power over my career. Now he was just another white-collar criminal facing justice. "It feels like closure," I finally answered. "Not because he's suffering, but because the truth is finally being recognized. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but it usually comes eventually." Adam had spent years believing his wealth and position made him untouchable. Now he was discovering that laws applied to everyone. The dissolution of Adam's company created opportunities across the industry. We acquired several of his former clients, along with some of his best employees who wanted to work for an ethical organization. More importantly, we purchased some of his company's technological assets at bankruptcy auction prices. "It's ironic," observed our chief financial officer during the acquisition meeting. "We're literally buying the remains of the company that tried to destroy us." But I saw it as justice, not irony. These assets would be put to better use in our hands. We'd build them into something that actually served customers instead of just enriching executives. The integration process revealed the full extent of Adam's mismanagement. His company's technology was years behind industry standards. Their customer service was almost non-existent. Their employee satisfaction ratings were abysmal. "How did they stay in business so long?" wondered Priya. "Momentum," I replied. "And the fact that customers didn't know better options existed. Now they did." Our client base had expanded exponentially as former clients of Adam's company discovered what professional service actually looked like. We'd gone from startup to industry leader in just 18 months. All because Adam had made the mistake of underestimating his former employee. With Adam's competition eliminated, our company dominated the market. But success brought new responsibilities. We were now the industry leader that others looked to for innovation and ethical practices. Power corrupts, Charles warned during one of our advisory meetings. The question is whether you'll handle success better than Adam did. It was a fair concern. I'd seen how quickly success could transform people into versions of themselves they wouldn't recognize. The key was remembering why we'd started this journey and staying true to those principles. We implemented transparent financial practices, regular employee satisfaction surveys, and customer feedback systems. Everything Adam's company had lacked. We're not just building a successful business, I told our expanded team during our quarterly meeting. We're proving that you can achieve success without sacrificing your integrity. The industry took notice. Business schools began using our company as a case study in ethical leadership. Competitors started adopting our customer service standards. We changed more than just our own fortunes. We changed the entire industry's expectations about how businesses should operate. That felt more satisfying than any personal revenge could have been. The transformation was complete. I was no longer Lila, the fired employee. I was Lila, the CEO who'd revolutionized an entire industry. Speaking engagements, board positions, and advisory roles filled my calendar. Young entrepreneurs sought my advice on building ethical companies. How did you know you could succeed against such an established competitor? Asked one ambitious startup founder. I didn't know, I answered honestly. But I knew the alternative was accepting that bullies like Adam would always win. That wasn't acceptable. Our company's success story became legend in business circles. The woman who'd been publicly fired and humiliated had built an empire that made her former boss's achievements look trivial. More importantly, we'd done it without compromising our values or treating people badly. You've redefined what success looks like in this industry, observed a business journalist during an interview. Success isn't just about profit margins anymore. It's about building something sustainable that actually serves people. That had always been our goal. We'd proven that you didn't need to be cruel or dishonest to achieve extraordinary success. In fact, ethical practices were actually more profitable in the long term. The final pieces of Adam's former empire were distributed at a liquidation auction. I attended out of curiosity, watching investors pick through the remnants of what had once seemed like an unstoppable company. His office furniture, company cars, and remaining technology assets were sold to the highest bidders. Lot 47, called the auctioneer. Executive desk set from the former CEO's office. I remembered that desk. I'd sat across from it countless times, listening to Adam's lectures about company loyalty and dedication. The same desk where he'd planned my public humiliation. A young entrepreneur bought it for $300. I hoped he'd use it to build something better than its previous owner had. After the auction, I drove past the building that had once housed Adam's headquarters. For lease sign hung in the window. Weeds grew in the parking lot. It looked abandoned and forgotten, a monument to the consequences of arrogance and greed. Meanwhile, our company continued growing. We'd opened offices in 3 new cities and were planning international expansion. The future was bright and full of possibilities. All because I'd refused to let one cruel man define my worth or limit my potential. Looking back on the journey, I realized it had never really been about Adam. He'd been the catalyst but not the real story. The real story was about resilience, integrity, and the power of building something meaningful. Yes, Adam's downfall had been satisfying. Watching justice finally catch up with a bully felt good. But the lasting satisfaction came from what we'd built, not what we'd torn down. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Adam hadn't fired you? Derek asked during one of our reflective moments. Would you have ever started this company? It was an interesting question. Probably not. I'd been comfortable in my role, despite Adam's toxic behavior. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us force us to discover strengths we never knew we had. Adam's cruelty had inadvertently given me the greatest gift of my professional life, the motivation to build something extraordinary. He thought he was ending my career, I told Derek. Instead, he started it. The irony was perfect. The man who'd tried to destroy me had actually created his own destroyer. Not through revenge or retaliation, but through inspiring me to achieve something greater than either of us had thought possible. The industry recognized our achievements with awards and accolades. Company of the Year, CEO of the Year, Most Innovative Business Model. The honors kept coming. But the recognition that meant the most came from our employees and clients. "You've created something special here," said Patricia, now one of our longest-standing clients. "A company that actually cares about doing the right thing." That had always been our mission. While Adam had built his empire through manipulation and fraud, we'd built ours through innovation and integrity. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. As for Adam himself, he was serving his federal sentence at a minimum security prison. His appeals exhausted and his reputation permanently destroyed. I felt no satisfaction in his suffering, just relief that he could no longer hurt innocent people. The industry had moved on. New leaders had emerged. Standards had been raised. The toxic culture that Adam had represented was being replaced by something healthier and more sustainable. "You didn't just win," observed Charles during our final advisory meeting before his retirement. "You changed the entire game." That felt like the most accurate assessment of what we'd accomplished. We hadn't just beaten our competition. We'd redefined what success could look like. Today, I walked away from the daily operations of the company I'd built. Not in defeat or exhaustion, but in triumph. We'd achieved everything I dreamed of when I sat in that parking lot, humiliated and angry. The company was strong enough to succeed without its founder. The leadership team was capable and committed to our values. The future was secure. Adam had become a footnote in business school case studies about corporate fraud. Meanwhile, our company continued setting industry standards for innovation and ethical practices. The woman he'd tried to destroy had built something that would outlast both of us. I cleaned out my office for the last time, packing away awards and mementos from an incredible journey. The letter of termination Adam had given me years ago was framed on my wall. Not as a reminder of humiliation, but as proof of how far I'd come. As I walked to my car, I thought about that terrible day when my world had collapsed in front of my colleagues. Adam had intended to break me, to prove that he held all the power and I was nothing without his approval. Instead, he'd unleashed something he never expected, a competitor who would surpass every achievement he'd ever claimed. I drove away without looking back. The future was waiting, bright with infinite possibilities.